The following is a special presentation of WRGB Channel 6, celebrating 75 years in broadcasting.
If I ask you to name some TV classics, you'd probably come up with I Love Lucy, Father Knows Best, or The Honeymooners.
But you may not realize that there was a local program that started before and lasted longer than any of these shows.
From April of 1949 to January 1966, if you owned a TV or had a neighbor who did, odds are you spent Friday nights watching The Teenage Barn.
And now we invite you to join us as we take you back to the barn.
The Teenage Barn, presented by Albany Savings Bank, founded in 1820, largest savings bank in northeastern New York. Tonight we'll feature members of our original cast.
For 17 years, the Teenage Barn was an important part of the local television landscape, and its secret of success was a simple one. Put out a call for young performers and spotlight the best and brightest on a live half-hour TV show. It wasn't a contest. There were no judges critiquing the acts. It was strictly a showcase for talented kids.
I sang.
I was a singer.
I did mostly ballet.
I played the marimba.
I sang.
We played guitars, me and my twin brother.
I played the guitar, and Marie played the accordion.
I played an accordion.
And I started playing the accordion on Teenage Barn.
I played the accordion.
We had a band we called the Silhouettes.
I did a dance.
I was a vocalist.
My dance class sang on Teenage Barn.
We square danced.
I was one of the blank dancers.
I mostly sang musical comedy.
I played saxophone.
We had some really good talent.
The man behind the music on Teenage Barn was producer Tommy Sternfeld. Tommy was a natural-born showman who owned a number of dance studios in the capital region. Before the barn, he had been behind an Albany radio show called Backyard Follies. But television was a wide-open frontier for Tommy, and WRGB was the only game in town. So he pitched a variety show featuring young children that he called Juvenile Jamboree.
I first went on Juvenile Jamboree. Remember that show?
Juvenile Jamboree was first, right, and that was fun. My sister Elaine was on there with me, and she had the dance routine, and I was always playing the piano.
Juvenile Jamboree, which was Tommy Sternfeld's pet project on Saturday afternoon, which was 9, 10, 11-year-old children.
The Jamboree went so well that Tommy was given the opportunity to broaden his playing field. The children who were too old to appear on Juvenile Jamboree were given a spotlight of their own in prime time every Friday night at 9:30, and he called it the Teenage Barn.
Curtain up, light the lights. We got nothing to hit but the heights. We'll be swell, we'll be great. I can tell, just you wait. That lofty star I talk about is due. Honey, everything's coming up, roses and daffodils. Everything's coming up, sunshine and lollipops. Everything's coming up, roses for me and for you.
I was singing Everything's Coming Up Roses. And that was the only song that I sang 2 times on the Teenage Barn. Tommy liked that song. And one time I did sing it, they had me on one of the light beams in the back there. And they had me all the way up to the ceiling. I think my mother almost died of shock. You know, she's in the back looking at this light beam way up in the air with me on it. And then they had the boom mic going all the way up to the light beam. And I started singing. You could barely see me. And as I was singing, they lowered me down.
Now, it's important to remember that in 1949, a production like this one had to be live. There was no tape. So stage moms and dads had to get their kids to the old WRGB studios located on the Schenectady side of the Western Gateway Bridge. There were 1 or 2 rehearsals, and then...
Boy, that red light would go on, and that was it. I mean, it was just sink or swim.
At 9:30, you went on, good or bad, that was it. There was no retakes.
And fortunately, not to brag, each and every one of us knew what we were doing. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked.
And while we were having fun, these adults were really pioneering in the whole field and trying these crazy things. It was just really like a fantasy land.
The sets were extremely elaborate. We did cotton candy in a toy balloon. They brought in a cotton candy machine. They had a carousel horse. they had extras walking behind us with balloons. Another song that we did was Buttons and Bows, and they put us in a horse and buggy with bales of hay around. I mean, this was not, it wasn't just a, you know, run-of-the-mill. There was a lot of attention to detail, a lot of attention to the scenery, the background. It was very sophisticated.
Barbara Aernecke tells us that the party's over.
It was a lot of fun. It was a great experience, a learning experience, and emotionally it was a lot of fun.
Some of the most memorable moments from Teenage Barn have to do with the mishaps that happened in this live production, and we'll share those with you when we return.
We'll also tell you how you can own a copy of tonight's broadcast of Back to the Barn. We'll be right back with more memories and more classic performances in just a moment.
It's safe to say that from its premiere in 1949 to its last broadcast in 1966, there was nothing on Capital Region TV that compared to either the scope or the popularity of Teenage Barn. Now remember, videotape wasn't around until the early 60s, so there were no reruns of the show. Each broadcast was a one-time only performance. So on the one hand, WRGB viewers knew they were guaranteed a new and different show every Friday night. And on the other hand, the WRGB crew knew they had to prepare for a new and different show every Friday night.
Down the old studio, we could set up X number, and while the number was going on, we'd be tearing one set apart and putting up another. 8 or 10 different production numbers for the Teenage Barn, all live.
Somebody was always doing something, stretching cable, moving TV cameras, rehearsing over in another area.
It seems like it was always like a hustle bustle, like there was always a lot of movement.
It was a very busy scene, and people were constantly moving, and that was one of the problems. You had to be very careful not to get distracted.
They brought the barrel of straw out after I had walked on stage, and as I was singing, I backed up and almost fell over. But it wasn't funny at the time, but yeah.
I think we had the first special effects. One night one of the girls was singing, "When Smoke Gets in Your Eyes," and the three of us were next to the camera out of range with cigarettes, and we were blowing smoke in front of the lens to give the appearance of smoke, and I think that was the original special effects.
I can remember standing in back of the set, praying that I remembered all the words. I remember one time forgetting the words, and Tommy left it in and had me come back the next week to do it, and he said, and when you come back next week, this is going to be great. At the end of the song, you just say, and I didn't forget the words this time.
It was a real fun show to put on.
And now, here are the Larry's Teens with Pagan Love Song.
This weekly production began with something as simple as a postcard.
He used to send little postcards as to what date and what song he wanted you to sing.
We would fill out the postcard and say the name of the piece, the publisher, and how many minutes, and then there was a time limit. As I recall, it couldn't be any shorter than 2.5 minutes and any longer than 4.
And Sternfeld had a great formula for the show. He cultivated a company of regular acts that the audience would recognize and look forward to. Acts that became household names like Marie and Lee, Art DeLuc, Amsterdam's Arlene Fontana, and Tommy's daughter, Buzz Sternfeld.
But look what I found.
The ones that were the regulars, they were very good. Tommy had an eye for talent, and you know, he kept the better acts for his regular shows.
They all still know Art DeLuc. I can tell you that people will tell him the song that he sang, and it was retired when he stopped Teenage Barn.
Tommy gave me the privilege of singing Old Man River.
You and me, we swam and trained, body all aching, wrecked with pain.
And then when I left, he retired it.
He would supplement these regulars with a handful of new performers and semi-regular performers to keep things fresh.
We were on once, but we tried out twice. And the first time we tried out, they told us that they didn't need us, that they, you know, we didn't make the cut.
I do remember I had to audition 3 times. When we finally did get on the show, in our school, every Friday that we were on, they would announce over the PA system that watch Teenage Barn tonight, the Gray Sisters were going to be on.
I remember the morning that we got the call that we were going to be on for the first time. I don't think there's ever been that many exciting days that I can see my mother, a very sedate, you know, reserved woman, jump in the air, but we were absolutely ecstatic.
I won a talent contest in a small city, and the prize was to be interviewed by Tommy Sternfeld, and if you were passed, you would be on TV.
Oh, our community, the whole community loved it. You know, Joe and Dean are dancing again. And
But whether you were a one-hit wonder or a 10-year veteran, every performer had one thing.
No. Nobody was paid.
No, we didn't get paid for anything. We didn't get paid for being on the air.
So nobody got rich performing on the Teenage Barn. That just meant they found their rewards another way.
we just did it because it was fun and we loved it. We were doing this purely for the enjoyment.
Marianne Snyder now, backed up by a sporty group from the Scotia Glenville High School, sings Where the Boys Are.
The boys are, someone waits for me, a smiling face, a warm embrace, 2 arms to hold me tenderly. Where the boys are, my true love will be. He is walking down some street in town, and I know he's looking there for me.
Everyone we spoke with treasures their Teenage Barn memories, even the ones that weren't exactly gems.
The boat would come in and turn the motor off, hopefully would come in, and the girl would sing Cruising Down the River on a Sunday afternoon. The boat never made it in the camera. The entire song was sang. You knew it was coming somewhere. You didn't know where. The girl was singing the whole song. We were panning trees, anything, but there was nothing to shoot.
Tommy would stand next to the camera. This is real now. He'd stand next to the camera and he'd stick a lit cigarette in his ear. And then you'd see the smoke coming out of his ear and out of his mouth, just to make the kid smile.
One night, my sister passed out. She always got very nervous before we went on TV.
I was playing Bumble Boogie. It's like a Flight of the Bumblebee, really fast paced. And somebody didn't put the screws into the floor in the grand, and it started to walk across the studio, so I scooted my piano bench all the way across and never lost a note.
A monkey that actually bit me just before it was a live show, just before we were about to go on.
When the show came, being a live show, I sat there on the couch and he sang his little song. And just as he leaned over to kiss me, I ran right off the set. I just couldn't let everybody see that.
I made a run for my mom,
And I remember that I jumped over a young man who was doing some elaborate acrobatic act spinning around on the floor. And instead of anyone being upset, they thought it was kind of cute and amusing. I was in the background of him and jumped over him as he was on TV.
We didn't know what it was going to be like. We're all excited, and most of them were scared. Few people froze up and wouldn't move.
It was our job to kind of relax them and you know, like, hey, if you want to sing to me. The heck with the camera. Don't be afraid. Sing it to me.
When we come back, the barn ends its run and some of the cast goes on to bigger, better days.
Back to the Barn will continue after the... Now, you can own a copy of WRGB's special presentation of Back to the Barn, a look back at the television classic Teenage Barn. For only $19.95, you can own a piece of television history and relive some of the classic moments that made Teenage Barn a hit for 17 years. For a VHS or DVD copy, just send a check for $19.95 made out to WRGB to Back to the Barn, care of WRGB, 1400 Balltown Road, Niskayuna, New York, 12309. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery.
In 1957, WRGB got too big for the downtown Schenectady facility that had been an outgrowth of the GE plant. We moved to our new home on Balltown Road, and Teenage Barn moved with us. It was shot in Studio A, the studio I'm in right now. By the late 50s and early 60s, many of the regular acts had outgrown Teenage Barn.
After 16, the Musicians Union said that you had to be paid. And of course, it wasn't. No one was paid anything. So at age 16, that was the cutoff point for instrumentalists. Now, singers, on the other hand, it was a different rule. For singers and dancers, you could stay on till you were 19.
And though some were gone, a new generation of performers made their mark.
I actually used to get a lot of fan mail.
We were always recognized because of that. Of course, being twins helped a lot.
My father was a mailman, and of course, everybody on his route saw me, you know, and then we'd get critiqued the next day.
And the show was as strong as ever.
Friday night, you had to be home. There's no way you could get around that.
I don't want to compare us to somebody like that Lawrence Welk show or something, but that's what it was. It was something like that where the people watched it every week. And they got to know you. And we went by the name of the Accordion Aces, our trio, and we were pretty well known.
Carla and Eric Jensen.
Tonight's the night I've waited for, because you're not a baby anymore. You turned into the prettiest girl I've ever seen. Happy birthday, sweet 16. What happened to that funny face? My little tomboy now wears satins and lace.
The new, bigger studio allowed for more elaborate production numbers.
We had the luxury here of being able to set up almost the entire show at the same time.
I had settings from Dunham's boat shop, and I had furniture that I walked through, and they just had so much space here that they could really go crazy.
Videotape gave the cast and crew more flexibility.
Towards the end, they were taping it. So the last couple of shows that I did, I was able to sit home and watch myself.
And occasionally, WRGB took the show on the road, filming some performances on location, like this 1962 performance shot at the Saratoga State Park.
The park on misty morning, a gardener when he's seen his last rose die, couldn't be so lonely as the nursery when the sparrows learn to fly. Couldn't be so lonely as the nursery when the sparrows learn to fly.
One time I was in Albany Savings Bank. They stuck me in the vault. And this guy was supposed to be kissing me inside the vault. When they opened the vault door, he ran out, and I started singing. And both of us thought we were going to be stuck in the vault for the whole weekend.
We did the Teenage Barn from the Albany Medical Center every year, Christmas show, the entire show.
By the mid-60s, some of the original cast had found success staying in the business. Tommy's own daughter changed her name to Buzz Halliday and went on to Broadway, where she co-starred with Dick Van Dyke in a play called The Girls Against the Boys. Ronnie Tober, a regular on the show, is to this day a singing sensation in the Netherlands. Amsterdam's Arlene Fontana performed from New York to Vegas and appeared on The Ed Sullivan and The Tonight Shows. But in 1966, the face of television was changing. Live local shows were on the way out. This was the year that the Teenage Barn and the Freddie Friehofer show were both canceled. The Earl Pudney show was gone the next year. And although it was sad to see the barn leave the airwaves, it's obvious as we look back that it left a thankful cast with a lifetime of memories.
Those years I'll never forget.
I was kind of famous.
You were like a local celebrity if you got on.
I grew up with Teenage Barn. Idolized every person that made it on the show.
It was like a milestone in my efforts.
This was an ultimate honor. I mean, it really was. There are certain things and landmarks in your life and in your career, and this is one of them.
I get introduced. My wife says, you know, Art DeLuca was with Teenage Barn.
You know, whether you're on TV in Schenectady or TV in New York City, it was still TV. So it was a great experience.
I'm sure when Tommy created the show, he never envisioned the popularity that it had.
Wonderful. It was the best time of my life. It was a wonderful, wonderful time.
From Schenectady, New York, here is Sandy Martin.
Go away, kick your heels up and spend the day. Buying a feather, a pig, or a bead. Buy yourself something you really don't need. Something sweet, like beautiful candy, too pretty to eat.
It's been 37 years since the curtain came down on Teenage Barn, and we're glad that we can share this brief glimpse into a program that had such an incredible impact on our community.
We wish we had more footage from the original show to share with you, but these few examples are all that still exist.
So in closing, we brought back two show regulars, Dr. John Angerosa accompanying Diane Dickershade-Payette on a song that she sang on Teenage Barn all those years ago.
I'm so very smart in all my lessons, reading, writing, and geography. But when it comes to spelling, I'm confessing, there's just one word that stumps me constantly. Feels like we never left. I can spell Dakota, can handle Minnesota, but I can't spell Schenectady. I can spell Havana and figure out Savannah, but I can't spell Schenectady. Why, one time in a spelling bee said teacher all at once, now Diane spells Schenectady. I felt just like a dunce. I spelled anaconda and even Tonawanda, so what do they expect of me if I can't spell Schenectady? I can spell Pomona, Seattle, and Tacoma, but I can't spell Schenectady. I've mastered Ypsilanti and Agua Caliente, but I can't spell Schenectady. Now teacher called on Percival, who never missed a word. When he misspelled Schenectady, the class called him a nerd. I can spell Weehawken, but teacher's always squawking. So what do they expect of me if I can't spell Schenectady?